Welcome to Cruise News, your daily update on everything happening at sea. Visit cruisenews.io to see today's stories and sign up for email alerts. Today, we are taking a close look at the structural architecture of the global cruise industry, specifically how macroeconomic forces, geopolitical conflicts, and regional diplomacy are fundamentally altering the maritime map.
Right. It's a really complex web of logistics right now.
It is. The choices available to travelers in the coming years are being shaped by these massive logistical calculations that are happening, well, long before a ship ever leaves port.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the industry is currently operating in this state of continuous calibration.
Right.
So we are tracking three major developments today that really illustrate this shift. First, mainstream operators are actively rerouting multi-billion-dollar assets to avoid conflict zones. And at the same time, you have specialized expedition lines that are pushing further into remote, hyper-curated frontiers. Yeah. And finally, destination countries are actually forming international alliances to capture the economic windfall of these shifting deployments.
Well, let's start with the financial and logistical impacts of that geopolitical instability on the mainstream maritime operations. TUI Group, which is the European travel conglomerate, they just released their fiscal third quarter 2026 earnings for their cruise division.
Right.
And the core takeaway from that report is a decline in underlying earnings before interest and taxes, or EBIT. The figure fell to 133 million euros.
Okay.
Which is down from 143 million during that same quarter the previous year.
Yeah, and this decline is directly attributable to the ongoing war involving Iran, which severely disrupted operations for two of TUI's major vessels.
That would be the Mein Schiff 4 and the Mein Schiff 5, right?
Yeah, exactly. Both of those ships were operating in the Middle East when the security situation really deteriorated. So, for safety reasons, maritime authorities and corporate risk managers required both of those vessels to remain in Gulf ports starting back in March.
Wow. And just to understand the scale of this disruption, it is helpful to look at the physical size of the assets involved here because, these are not small coastal cruisers.
No, not at all.
Both the Mein Schiff 4 and Mein Schiff 5 have a gross tonnage of approximately 99,000.
Right.
And for those unfamiliar with maritime metrics, gross tonnage doesn't actually measure weight. It measures a ship's total internal volume. So 1 gross ton equals 100 cubic feet of enclosed space.
Yeah, so these vessels are just massive. They're highly complex floating infrastructure projects.
Yeah.
Each one is designed to carry roughly 2,500 passengers.
So 2,500 passengers. The financial strain of keeping an asset of that size just sitting idle has to be immense.
Oh, it's incredible. The Mein Schiff 5 spent 2 full months docked in Qatar, just awaiting security clearance to safely transit the Strait of Hormuz.
Which is a critical maritime choke point.
Precisely. And that clearance was finally granted in April. But they couldn't simply return to their scheduled passenger routes through the Red Sea.
Right, because of the security risks?
Exactly.
Right.
So the vessel was forced to sail entirely around the continent of Africa just to return to service in the eastern Mediterranean by mid-May.
The logistics of a sudden African circumnavigation, that presents a massive operational challenge.
Oh, absolutely. A cruise line in this scenario has to secure unbudgeted marine fuel for thousands of unexpected nautical miles.
Right.
They have to maintain payroll for a full crew on a ship that is operating without any revenue-generating passengers.
Wow.
While simultaneously trying to manage the public relations and, the refund processes for all those canceled itineraries.
So did TUI Group quantify this specific disruption in their report?
They did, yeah. The company attributed 20 million euros in direct costs to this rerouting during the third quarter alone.
20 million in just 1 quarter.
Right. And over a 9-month period, the total financial impact reached 40 million euros.
Okay, so that raises a question regarding the broader consumer market. Because is a 40 million euro loss primarily the result of the physical logistical hurdles? The cost of fuel and the idle time? Or does it reflect a fundamental shift in consumer confidence? If passengers perceive the region as unstable, they might be hesitant to book future travel regardless of where the ship is physically located.
Yeah, that's exactly the dynamic. And TUI's chief executive, Sebastian Ebel, he addressed that exact point during the earnings presentation.
What did he say?
Well, he noted that the financial impact is a compounding of both the physical logistics and consumer psychology.
Okay.
He stated that wars, geopolitical tensions, consumer caution, economic weakness, and rising inflation in Europe's core markets, they've all influenced consumer sentiment and the timing of purchasing decisions.
Oh, I see.
So travelers are waiting much longer to finalize their bookings, and they're actively reconsidering which regions of the world they feel comfortable visiting.
Right. But despite that 40 million euro hit and the prolonged delays in Qatar, TUI Group's broader financial picture kind of demonstrates how operators use scale to absorb these regional shocks, doesn't it?
It really does, because their 9-month EBIT actually increased. It went up to 297 million euros,
Wow. Up from what?
up from 273 million the previous year.
Okay.
Furthermore, the average daily rate paid by passengers rose by 4% to 252 euros.
So that financial resilience, that's driven by capacity expansion then.
Exactly. During that same 9-month period, TUI's available passenger days rose by 12%. And this growth largely stems from the introduction of a new vessel, the Mein Schiff flow.
Ah, okay. The Mein Schiff flow. And the specifications of that ship really illustrate how modern cruise economics function.
Yeah, they do.
Because it is the 19th ship across TUI's combined brands, which include TUI Cruises, Marella Cruises, and Hapag-Lloyd Cruises. And it comes in at 160,000 gross tons, 333 meters in length. It features nearly 2,000 cabins and accommodates almost 4,000 passengers at maximum capacity.
Yeah, so when a corporation introduces a vessel of that magnitude, the sheer volume of new inventory and passenger revenue serves as this massive financial buffer against localized disruptions.
Makes sense.
Now, TUI did report a slight reduction in passenger days for the recent quarter, but that was due to scheduled dry dock maintenance.
Right, for Mein Schiff 3 and Hapag-Lloyd's Hanseatic Spirit.
Exactly. And a dry dock, which involves taking a ship completely out of the water for comprehensive below-the-waterline inspection and maintenance, it temporarily removes a ship from revenue service.
But it's required for long-term operational viability.
Exactly. The overall corporate trajectory remains completely focused on growth.
We also see how mobility serves as the ultimate risk mitigation strategy. Following its African detour, the Mein Schiff 5 underwent a dry dock refurbishment in Dubai, resumed service in the Eastern Mediterranean, and is scheduled to remain there through mid-October. And afterward, it will reposition to La Romana in the Dominican Republic.
Right, transitioning away from the volatility.
Exactly. Its winter 2026-27 deployment is entirely focused on the Caribbean, with scheduled stops in the ABC Islands, St. Martin, Catalina Island, and Santo Domingo. So when a region becomes geopolitically unviable, operators simply relocate their multi-billion-dollar assets to regions with stable consumer demand.
Yeah, and that is the defensive strategy of the mass market sector.
Right.
However, a distinctly different strategy is emerging in the premium expedition sector.
Okay.
While mainstream operators seek stability and safe harbors, specialized expedition lines are actively deploying their vessels to the most remote, difficult-to-access regions of the globe.
And we can see this offensive deployment strategy in National Geographic-Lindblad's newly announced 2028-29 itinerary.
Yes, definitely.
Their upcoming schedule represents a significant pivot from traditional mass-market sightseeing toward extreme niche curation. The deployment spans French Polynesia, Southeast Alaska, Antarctica, the Arctic, and Europe.
And the French Polynesia itinerary provides a really clear example of this hyper-specialization.
How so?
Well, National Geographic-Lindblad is executing a continuous voyage that connects Easter Island, Pitcairn, Henderson, Ducie, Makatea, and the Tuamotus.
Wow.
Yeah. According to their deployment announcement, this is the only continuous commercial voyage connecting all 6 of those specific destinations.
That's incredibly remote. And a notable detail in this deployment is the methodology behind the itinerary design. It was co-developed by Sven Lindblad and Tua Pittman.
Right.
And Pittman is recognized as a master navigator. Specifically, he is one of fewer than 10 living POO navigators.
Yes.
And he is scheduled to join select departures to guide traditional wayfinding across the island chain.
Yeah. And for context, POO navigation is the traditional Polynesian discipline of wayfinding without modern instruments. So navigators read the physical environment. They look at the refraction of ocean swells, the movement of specific star paths, and even the flight patterns of pelagic birds.
Wow.
And they use all that to determine their position and locate land masses.
But from a purely maritime operations standpoint, modern expedition vessels are equipped with highly advanced electronic chart display and information systems.
Oh, of course.
They have global satellite positioning, forward-looking sonar, Given that a ship's bridge can pinpoint its location to within a few meters, the inclusion of a traditional POO navigator indicates a pretty significant shift in the product being sold to the consumer.
It does. It reflects a fundamental change in premium travel demand. Consumers booking these specific expeditions are no longer purchasing simple transportation or visual sightseeing.
Right.
They are purchasing academic and cultural immersion. Technology provides the coordinates, but traditional wayfinding contextualizes the anthropological history of how the Polynesian islands were originally settled.
I see. So the expedition ship essentially acts as a mobile base camp for education.
Precisely. And this model of academic curation extends across National Geographic-Lindblad's other global deployments.
Like in the Arctic region?
Yes. Specifically, Greenland's King Frederick VI Land. The company is placing researchers on board to actively track a recently identified, genetically distinct population of polar bears.
Okay.
So passengers are essentially participating in a live field search.
That's fascinating. And similarly, in the Canadian Arctic, their transit of the Northwest Passage is heavily programmed around historical context.
Right.
The voyage connects the physical geography of the region to specific historical eras, including Viking exploration remains, early Basque whaling operations, and early French settlements.
Yeah, and the European deployment applies this exact same level of specialization.
Okay.
On the British and Irish Isles voyages, the company is traveling with an ethnomusicologist, Jacob Edgar.
Oh, an ethnomusicologist?
Yes. And his role is to interpret Celtic musical traditions as the vessel moves between different geographic regions. So it basically transforms the onboard entertainment into a structured seminar on cultural migration.
That's a very different approach to onboard programming. And their port selections in Europe also reflect this focus on historical depth.
They do.
For example, in Cobb, Ireland, the shore excursions are directly tied to local history, focusing on the Titanic's final port of call, the rescue operations following the sinking of the Lusitania, and the history of emigration during the Great Famine.
Yeah. Furthermore, their European river cruise products feature highly exclusive access.
Right.
Along with holiday sailings through the Danube Christmas markets, they have arranged specific meetings for passengers with Holocaust survivors.
Okay.
They also secure private, after-hours access to historical sites like Melk Abbey and Clam Castle, which offers experiences that independent travelers cannot easily replicate.
Right. You can't just book that on your own.
Exactly. And to support all this programming, the company is expanding its physical reach.
So more vessels and routes.
Right. They've introduced a new 10-night peak season circumnavigation of Iceland. In Alaska, their vessel, the Greg Mortimer, will operate a new round-trip route from Vancouver.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the National Geographic Quest and National Geographic Venture will execute longer regional itineraries featuring onboard researchers from the Alaska Whale Foundation.
And in the Southern Hemisphere, their Southern Ocean Odyssey consolidates multiple remote regions into a single extended itinerary. The route combines Patagonia, the Falkland Islands, South Georgia, and Antarctica. They're also expanding their cruise and fly options, allowing passengers to bypass the volatile waters of the Drake Passage by flying directly to the Antarctic Peninsula to board the ship.
Yeah, and the economic strategy behind this programming is isolation from broader market volatility.
Oh, so?
Well, by offering hyper-curated experiences, whether it's sailing with a POO navigator or tracking a distinct polar bear population, they create a premium product.
Right.
And this demographic is generally more insulated from the rising inflation affecting the core European markets that TUI identified.
Ah, I see.
Consumers in this bracket view the expenditure as an investment in unique educational access.
Right, which brings us to the third perspective shaping the industry, destination strategy. Because as mainstream operators pull ships from volatile regions to find safe harbors, and expedition lines seek out new frontiers, local governments and port authorities are fiercely competing to attract these vessels.
Absolutely.
Because a single port call from a 4,000-passenger mainstream ship, or even a 100-passenger luxury expedition vessel, injects significant capital into a local economy.
It does. But the competition among destinations has historically been fragmented, with neighboring countries undercutting each other.
Right.
However, a recent summit in South America indicates a shift toward regional consolidation.
And that was the 11th Regional Cruise Meeting recently held in Punta del Este, which gathered tourism ministers, port authorities, and cruise stakeholders from Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Chile.
Yeah, and a primary focus of the summit was the necessity of joint destination marketing.
Okay.
Uruguay's tourism minister, Pablo Manoni, he proposed a unified presence for the region at Seatrade Cruise Global in Miami.
And Seatrade is the primary international convention where cruise line executives meet with destination representatives and negotiate future deployments.
Exactly. And Manoni's argument is that presenting as a unified bloc, referred to as the Southern Cone, is significantly more effective than Uruguay, Argentina, and Chile operating individual promotional booths.
So they're attempting to negotiate with the cruise lines not as separate nations, but as a single comprehensive regional itinerary.
Yes.
To put this in geopolitical terms, it appears they're attempting to create a framework similar to the European Schengen zone, but specifically tailored for maritime cruise operations.
That's an accurate parallel.
Because if a cruise operator wants to schedule a 14-day voyage down the South American coast, navigating the individual bureaucracies of 5 different nations presents a massive barrier to entry.
Right, and it is the exact logistical hurdle this alliance is trying to dismantle.
Okay.
In a fragmented system, a cruise line has to comply with Chile's specific environmental regulations and customs fees, and then they cross into Argentine waters where they face a completely different structure of harbor master requirements, local pilotage mandates, and sanitation certifications.
It's a lot of red tape.
Exactly. Managing overlapping and sometimes contradictory legal frameworks requires substantial corporate resources.
Right.
So by streamlining these policies across borders, the Southern Cone countries lower the operational costs for the cruise lines, which makes the region a much more attractive deployment option.
And representatives from the major cruise lines were present at this meeting to participate in these structural discussions, right?
Yes. Executives from Costa Cruises and MSC Cruises, both major players in the Latin American market, were involved in panels focused on building these exact regional alliances.
And the destination side of this effort is being formalized through a network called Conosur.
That's right.
This organization currently includes 17 regional members, featuring major coastal infrastructure points like the ports of Arica, Valparaiso, Portimont, and Punta Arenas.
Yeah, and the discussions at the Punta del Este Summit extended beyond basic marketing. They focused heavily on the operational survival of the region's tourism sector.
Okay.
Key agenda items included tightening the control of operator costs within the ports, improving the sustainable integration of port facilities with their host cities, and even integrating artificial intelligence to optimize port connectivity and logistical operations.
The urgency of these initiatives kind of loops back to the reality we saw with TUI Group.
What do you mean?
Well, maritime assets are inherently mobile.
Oh.
If port costs in the Southern Cone become too high, or the bureaucratic friction of crossing national borders becomes too complex, operators will simply redraw their maps.
Exactly.
They will redeploy those vessels to the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, or Southeast Asia, where the regulatory environment is more predictable. So the onus is entirely on the destinations to ensure their regions are economically and logistically viable for the cruise lines.
Yeah, that is the reality of the business.
So when analyzing these 3 developments together, a clear picture emerges of an industry defined by rapid adaptation.
Definitely.
The future availability and pricing of consumer cruise vacations are being dictated by macro-level risk management.
Precisely. I mean, we have observed corporate risk managers rerouting 99,000-ton vessels around the African continent to insulate their passengers and their quarterly earnings from geopolitical conflict.
Right.
We have seen expedition operators partnering with traditional Polynesian navigators and ethnomusicologists to meet a growing consumer demand for rigorous cultural authenticity. And we have witnessed South American governments forming unified diplomatic blocs to streamline maritime law and secure their share of global ship deployments.
It underscores how intertwined global events are with consumer travel options. If traditional maritime choke points remain restricted by international tension and premium travelers continue to demand extreme specialized access, the fundamental geography of the cruise industry will continue to evolve.
Yeah.
Mainstream operations may increasingly consolidate into highly protected, simplified regional circuits, while the expedition sector continues to map the furthest edges of the globe. It's certainly something for travelers to consider as they plan their future voyages. Thanks for listening to Cruise News. Visit cruisenews.io to catch up on the latest updates and sign up for free email alerts.